Hi everyone, I'm Roxana Jula, iOS developer by day and AR enthusiast by night, and today I will show you how to use Reality Converter and Reality Composer, which are Apple's own augmented reality tools. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter, so feel free to reach out and continue the conversation there. AR provides so many opportunities, from previewing furniture into our home to experiencing newly launched cars. This technology can improve our experience, especially in the context of the current pandemic, where we do so many things from the comfort of our home. And the big question is, are Apple AR glasses coming soon? Maybe. There are a lot of rumors, and there's this great roundup by Mac Rumors you can check out. But what we know for sure is that Apple is investing a lot into this technology and building iOS AR experiences is as easy as it can be. And before we dive into how to use Reality Converter and Reality Composer, I'd like to go over some key fundamentals we should know beforehand. First, we can talk about AR Quick Look. If you haven't heard about this technology, it basically provides a very powerful experience with user interactions like moving and scaling of an object, people occlusion, sharing the model, or all supported out of the box. So you can either put this into an app in just a few lines of code, or you can actually just share it directly into your devices and open it. You don't need to have an app necessarily. You can open those files and it will open the AR experience. This AR Quick Look supports two input formats, USDZ, we will talk a little bit more about this in a bit, and then also Reality, which is the file you will get from Reality Composer. If you want to test out some models that are using AR Quick Look, you can go on this gallery that Apple put together and you can just try out some things there and see how it looks. Another great thing about AR Quick Look is that it's supported also in websites, of course, because when you go into this website, you will be able to see it there. So it's not just for iOS and iPadOS apps. And of course, we should mention that there are some limitations with AR Quick Look, but it's great to get you started and it's great in a lot of cases, so it's worth looking into it. I mentioned USDZ as a file format that is supported by AR Quick Look, and the technology behind it is called Universal Scene Description. What is really interesting about this file format is that it was developed by Pixar. It's not developed by Apple. So, as you might know, Pixar has a lot of experience with 3D content, a lot of animations, animation movies, and basically they try to do something that has a focus on speed, scalability, and collaboration. And of course, the USDZ is a distribution format for this USD. And you can use it with AR Quick Look. When it comes to Reality Converter, it's a great tool. You will see. You will use this one to convert your existing 3D objects into USDZ. It's still in beta version, but so far I think it works quite nice. I haven't had issues with it, and it's very easy to use. You just do a drag and drop of your models and it converts them to USDZ. Of course, it needs to be one of the format that is it's supported, like OBJ, GLTF, and you have some different options that I'll go over that you can do inside this tool. And the way you used to convert USDZ, well, your existing models to use USDZ before, was with the Python tools you can still download those and you can still use them. You would use a terminal to convert your models, validate them, inspect them. You would do different things with your models. But now we have this one, which is just much more nicer to use, and it has more functionality in many ways. This one is only available on macOS. And just to give you like a very high level understanding of how this works, you would have your 3D content that comes with a geometry. So for example, FBX or OBG. And then you also have some textures and you import those into Reality Converter. It does its magic and it just exports it to USDZ. So you can then use this one in, for example, Reality Composer, which we will do in a bit. Reality Composer is also a tool by Apple, and it's really, really good, especially if you don't have experience with 3D content creation tools like Blender or similar uh, software. And basically, you use this one to prototype and produce content for your area experiences. You can then integrate those into Xcode or even use them directly with AR Quick Look. I think this is really great, because when you start using, if you're a developer and you want to get into augmented reality, it can be a little bit intimidating if you don't have 3D experience. It was the same for me. And having this tool, it was actually a little bit more straightforward, and it kind of allowed me to start playing around with this technology and understand a little bit more when it comes to creating your experiences. It even has like a built-in AR library. You can, for example, do live linking from your Mac to an iPad, so you can actually test out your experience in AR. You wouldn't be able to do it from your Mac OS. You would need to have it in a device. So you would be able to do that, perhaps even make some adjustments, send it back. It's a very nice flow when you want to create those experiences. It's available in the App Store, and you can download it for iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. Okay, so if you want to use Reality Converter, first off, you can download it from the Apple Developer Downloads page. Here you can see the latest version and the release notes. And before we can actually test Reality Converter, I would like to go and find a model. And the website that I usually like to use is Sketchfab because they have quite a nice selection of 3D models. So if you're looking for some models to just start experimenting, this is a really good place. Actually, about half a year ago, I believe, they introduced the option to download directly in USDZ. So theoretically, you wouldn't even need to use Reality Converter. But of course, for this demo, we will work out with different formats. And here, when you press on the Download 3D Model button, you'll be able to see what file formats we have over here. So let's go ahead and download the original format, FBX, and try to see how that goes. Just click on Download, and I'll move it on over here, and I'll open Reality Converter. So what I need to do now is unzip this file that I just downloaded and drag and drop the whole folder. First off, if you don't have it yet, you might need to install the FBX Python SDK. If you don't have it yet, you will get like a prompt saying you need to download this. They even give you a link where you can download it from, so no issue over there. Just make sure to have the latest version installed. And because I already had that, it worked, but you can see that it didn't work as expected. The model that I've seen on Sketchfab was much more colorful, so it seems like some of the materials are missing. Something is off. But here I can see there are two warnings. So if I open that up, I can see some suggestions of what I can do and kind of to make this work. So at this point, if you are the creator of the model, you might want to go and fix those things in whatever tool you use, like maybe Blender, or talk with the designer that made this. But in our case, we will not do that. I will just actually, what I like to do when I run into those kind of issues is use the GLTF version, because I've had great success with using GLTF. So I remembered that in Sketchfab there was an option to download the GLTF. So I'll try to do that. I'll download it over here. And again, move it into my folder. And I'll keep this one for now. And I'll unzip this new folder. This is the new folder which has a GLTF. And again, what I will do, I'll just drag and drop the full folder. And you see, now it looks how we expected it to look. Over here, you will be able to see the previous one as well. You can have like a list of multiple models if you want to work at them in the same time. But in our case, this looks perfect. It looks like how I expected it to look. So I will continue with this, and I will use this one instead to convert it to USDZ. I can switch between those over here, and I can give you a tour of what you can find in Reality Converter. Of course, first thing, you have this 3D viewport, which you can kind of navigate your way around the model. You can zoom in and out and just move around. And because of this, if you end up being lost in this viewport, we have this button over here which says frame, which will just bring you back to your model. In this tab of model, you can see different models you have, and after you finish all the work you need to do with them, you're actually able to export them all in the same time. But because this one has some warnings and it didn't work out well, I will just remove it and just keep this one that was successfully converted. On the other side, we have a button to share. This one is very useful if you want to test out, even from this point, the model, how it looks on your device. So for example, you can airdrop it to your device and see how it looks. You can even put it into Notes or Message or Mail. They all support Air Quick Look, so you can just test it out directly. Then we have the tab of Environment, where you can see some preloaded IBLs from image-based lighting. So you can kind of switch between different environment conditions and see how your model will look. You can also just click over here to show it or hide it if you want to keep the grid only, and or if you want to see the environment as well. It's up to you. You can also show and hide the grid. When you see the grid, it's actually quite useful because over here in the top left, you're able to see how big is one side of the small square over here. In our case, it's 100 meters. And how big is the side of the big square, which is kind of this one, in our case, 500 meters. Also, from the Environment tab, you can change between the exposure. So you can change the exposure of your model if that's what you need. Then we have the Materials tab, which is the place where you can actually switch between your materials and attach base color, metallic, roughness, normal, everything you need over here. I don't see how often you will want to change those in here, but you have them here as a possibility. And of course, if you make some changes, you can press on the reset button. And finally, in the Properties tab, here you can add the copyright information if you want to do that. And I think here is actually the most important feature from Reality Converter, and that is the base units. And that is very important because different digital content creation tools have export the models in different base units. So perhaps you would get a model exported from a tool in meters, another one in centimeters. So here you can actually adjust it to make sure that it is how it was intended. So basically, if you would end up seeing your model is maybe 100 times bigger or 100 times smaller than you would expect, maybe the base units are wrong. So you can come here and change it. And I will do the same for this one because 500 meters seems quite big. So I'll just change it to centimeters. And you see that the grid here, the sizing has changed. So now you would see that kind of now we will have the model cover maybe 2 of those big grids. So it will be, you know, 2 times the big square of 500 centimeters. So this is what you need and what you can do with Reality Converter. And the final thing you can do is just export it. So in our case, just export. We don't have multiple scenes, so it's enough to click on export. And I will call it my island perhaps. I'll move it over here. So now it was exported successfully to USDZ. Reality Composer is actually embedded into Xcode, so you don't need to download it if you already have Xcode. You just need to go into the menu and pick Open Developer Tools and select Reality Composer from there. And this is how it will look when you open it up. You can choose an anchor. You can see here we have 5 types of anchors. Horizontal, when you want to have an experience on a tabletop or on the floor. We have vertical, for example, if you want to make some AR experiences where you have wall decorations. We can have image as an anchor, so any AR content you want to place will be attached to that image. This could, for example, be great if you want to do like an AR business card and kind of show some things when you detect your business card. We also have face filters, of course, very well known nowadays. You can do that from here as well. And another one that it's called Object. It's not very well known, but basically you have this app you can use from Apple to scan a real life object, and you would use that as an anchor. So perhaps in a museum, you would use this to scan a statue and then detect that statue and start an AR experience from it. But in this demo, we will go and use horizontal, which is pretty well used anchor type. And you can actually here select if you want to have some template content or not. Oh, I will just leave it disabled now, but you can enable it if you want. So with this one picked, I will say choose, and it will start off this scene for me. And it's actually okay if you select it horizontal and you want to change it later, you can do so from here, so that's not a big issue. And if we start to look around, you can see we have the scenes tab where you can see multiple scenes you can create. For example, if you want to have more complex experiences, you would want to have different scenes. In our case, we'll just use one. Again, you have the viewport, the 3D viewport that you can navigate around, and of course this will make more sense when you have some 3D content, but as in a reality converter, you have this frame option. So if you need to just have your model framed again without you having to move around the viewport, you can do so from here. The snap option, I will show you in a bit what is used for. Maybe more interesting is when you click on the plus button over here, it will open up the AR library. This is provided by Apple, so you have some basic models that you can use in your experiences. You can change them, modify them as you want, and use them. And you can see here we have some basic shapes, different kind of activities, even food, nature, places. You have many things you can try out and maybe directly use in your experience, or maybe just use them as a placeholder until you have your own models imported. And what is really nice is that each of those actually have their own set of properties because they were defined in that way. And I will show you what I mean by that. So let's just add a few shapes into this scene. I added a cube. I'll add like a spring. I'm thinking maybe to add a cupcake. There's also have like furniture pieces, and they just get added into your scene where there's space. There's also an interesting one called frame. Just search it. I'll just pick this one as well. And now let's just go through them and see what you can do with each one of them. For example, if I pick up the cube over here, first of all, you will start seeing those kind of cones with the arrows and different colors, and they all represent an axis. So for example, X, Y, and Z. If I select this one, and I can start moving it up and down on the X, on the Y axis. If I pick this one, I can move my object on the Z axis, and if I pick the red one, it will be on the X axis. As you can see, when I select one of those, I also get this circle, which I can use to either change the scale of the object on that axis, or even kind of rotate it. And this is what happens. What you can see, it goes from 15 degrees into 15 degrees, and that's because I have snap activated over here. If I disable that one, I can just go like degree by degree. So it's up to you what kind of accuracy you want when you're making those modifications. And now, if you want, you can look into this properties tab, and here you also have options to change the things that we did now from the UI. You can change them from here directly as well. X, Y, Z, the rotation, the scale, you can do it from here too. Then we have this tab, which is called Look, and it gives us some customization option. For example, I can pick what kind of material I want this object to look like. So for example, I can pick gold, change the width and height. And you can see those are kind of, some of those options are options that only make sense for a cube. They won't maybe make sense for the bench over here. We have the depth and even the radius of this. So this was kind of like specific parameters I could change for my cube over here. Same you have for a spring. You can change different things over here, the revolutions. You can customize it very well. For the cupcake, it's quite interesting. I'll just zoom in a bit. You have the style, so you can have realistic or stylized or iconic. And if we move on to the frame, this is also very nice to use because let's say over here you have to configure it and pick your image. So let's say I'll just choose to import an image I want to put into this frame. I have this image. So your frame will actually adapt and kind of the size and the form of it according to the image you uploaded. And then you have some options here like the style of it, the size, the mount, different options over here. So you can make it, like, you can actually make a lot of interesting experiences with those kind of options and things you already have in the AR library. And also, this couch selected, you can also switch between realistic and stylized. Now I'll just remove all those test items and I'll add one to show you a little bit about the physics and how you can activate that on your objects. So let's say if I go and pick activities and find, there should be like a, yeah, let's pick up the baseball and I can use the frame scene now. So take us nice back to our object. When I select this one and I say that it participates in physics, I will change the motion type to dynamic. And here you can pick what kind of material you want your motion to mimic. So in our case, we wanted to kind of behave like a rubber material. And the collision shape, if you're not sure, you can also, in our case, is a sphere, is pretty straightforward, but if you're not sure, you can pick automatic, so that's fine. And the way we can test this one, I'll just make that this is kind of floating maybe 1.5 meters above the ground, above the zero axis. And what happens is if I play my scene over here, the basketball will actually fall and kind of have this bounce effect because it participates in physics and it has like a rubber material. So it will behave like this. So this is pretty much what you can do from the properties tab. Depends a lot on what kind of model you have, but kind of like a nice overview. And now we can actually go and import the model we just converted. So that will be my island in USDZ. And you can see it was quite big, and probably I could have changed it from meters to millimeters, but over here I'll just go and scale it down a little bit. And I'll also make sure that it's center on the axis. Again, I'll kind of frame it a little bit closer. I can zoom in. And this is how it looks right now in Reality Composer. And now that we had a look at what you can do in this tool, there's one more thing we call behaviors. And this is actually when it gets even more interesting. And you can customize your experiences with behaviors. And over here on the left corner, you have the plus button, which will open up a menu. Here you have some predefined behaviors from Apple, like tap and flip, tap and play sound, and so on. And you can also add your own custom behavior. Let's just test one that is already here. So let's maybe pick tap and flip. And you can see it has a warning sign, and that's because every time you add a behavior, you need to specify for which object that behavior is. So in our case, we need to go over here and say choose the affected object. I'll just click on it and say done. That's fine. And the same will happen with the action sequence over here. We have an option of emphasize. I'll click on this one on the model, click done. And there are some customizations here from Apple. I'll just leave it like that. And if you want to preview this action, you have this preview button over here. So I can just press it. I'll just zoom out a bit so we can see what is going on. So you can preview this specific action. You can also preview the whole action sequence. In our case, we just have one, but you can do it from here as well. Let's say we want to add another action so we can have actually a sequence. I'll just keep it emphasized as well. Pick the object. Make sure. But I'll say I want it to, instead of flip like the first one, I want it to spin. And then style, a basic style. You can just experiment and see which does what. And now I can preview this one. So now if I press play over here, it will actually play the whole action sequence, and the actions will go from left to right, and they will go one after the other. If you want them to happen in the same time, all you need to do is select one of the actions and drag and drop it on top of the other one. So now you can see they are connected, which means that if I play the action sequence now, they will happen in the same time. Over here, you can also select this option to loop. So your action sequence will just go on and on and on. And if you want to preview your whole experience, you can play of the button over here, but now you will actually need to trigger that action, that behavior. So we know that the trigger is a tap, so I'll do that. and it will trigger my behavior. Now let's remove this one and add our own custom behaviors. So I'll select custom, and now I have to pick the trigger. I want to have a trigger that will, let's say scene start, but you can see that you have tap, you have scene start, proximity to camera, collide, and notification. We'll use scene start. You don't need to use an object that is effective for this one because it's just kind of like a general trigger. And then for the action sequence, you can see here what options you have, but I want to play ambience. Now I have to pick no, actually this one, I have to pick the audio that will play. And you also have a library of different audios you can use. So let's say I'll use this forest floor. This should be fine. So now when I start and I play my scene, because it is triggered by scene start, it will just go and start the ambience sound. Now I want to add another one. You can add as many behaviors as you want. I'll do again a custom one, and I'll say proximity to camera. I'll pick the object, and 1 meter, let's say 2 meters. You can select the distance that will trigger this proximity to camera. And the action sequence, I want it to be emphasize. The object is already chosen, and I'll say, let's say float, perhaps 10 seconds in a basic style. It's always good to go here and rename your behaviors. Float. So just to keep everything organized. So let's go ahead and play again this. It will start the ambient sound. And when I get closer to the camera, it will start floating. And you see that actually the ambient sound kind of finished. So I will just need to make sure that I put a loop here. So it just goes on and on. But yeah, this is pretty much like some fundamentals you can do in Reality Composer. Now it's all up to you, and go and use your creativity to do some interesting things. And kind of to use this experience, you can go and export it. But also just to mention that you should go into preferences and make sure that USDZ export is enabled if you want to export it to USDZ. And also from here you can change the unit. So maybe if you want to switch to imperial unit, you can do that from here. I will just actually export it into reality file because I want to use it for AR Quick Look on my device. USDZ, it's kind of like a more general format you can export. Even better if you want to use it on web applications. You cannot use reality files on web. So I'll go and export the whole project. Give it a name. And the last thing I did was to airdrop this reality file into my device so I can test it out. I just saved it into the files on my device and open it up. So you can see here how the experience looked. When I got closer, it started floating, exactly how we set up the behavior to be. Thank you very much for joining this talk on Reality Converter and Reality Composer. I hope it inspired you to create some cool AR experiences.